Madara and Sasuke are the most powerful Uchihas without the shadow of a doubt. A battle between the two of them would be very destructive, but who would win? Both characters have many different forms. Most of them, however, are pretty easy to decide on a very clear winner. Any form of Sasuke without a Rinnegan would lose to any form of Madara that we know the capabilities of. The most powerful Sasuke without a Rinnegan is EMS Sasuke, and we saw how he did against revived Madara. The same would happen against any other Madara form. EMS Sasuke doesn't have enough firepower to beat Madara, and Madara could easily counter all of his jutsus, dodge Amaterasu for example, or simply block everything Sasuke has with his own Susanoo. Blind Madara took on EMS Sasuke pretty well, so I have no doubt that any other form would easily dispose of him. Also, the difference between their Susanos is just too much for Sasuke to handle. Edo Madara can also use wood clones and some at least 25 Susanos at the same time, and Sasuke just has no chance here when he doesn't have a Rinnegan. It's not even fair to compare earlier forms of Sasuke to Madara like MS Sasuke or Heavy Sasuke. That's mostly because we don't know Madara's strength pre-EMS. We never saw him fighting anyone before he got his EMS, and we don't even know his base Mangekyo abilities. I guess we saw a 10-year-old Madara, but that doesn't really count either. Still, he would probably be very powerful before his EMS because he was fighting Hashirama every other week, and he never died during those fights, which is a very good sign if you ask me. Regardless, as we don't know what Madara could do back then, I don't think it's even worth discussing for this topic. However, Madara is not the only one who gets easy wins here. Any form of Madara without the Jubi would lose to any form of Sasuke with the Rinnegan. Rinnegan Sasuke is simply on a level above non-Jubi Madara and Hashirama, which were the previous most powerful characters in the series before Jubi Jinchurikis were introduced. Rinnegan Sasuke and Sage of Six Paths Naruto surpassed that level. Rinnegan Sasuke also has a perfect Susanoo, which can now fight Madara's perfect Susanoo in a fair fight, but the Rinnegan granted by Hagoromo is simply too powerful. More so than Madara's Rinnegan. Also, it allows Sasuke to see the Limbo clones, which renders one of the biggest advantages of Rinne Rebirth Madara almost useless. So really, Rinnegan Sasuke is taking Edo Madara, Rebirth Madara, or Alive Madara any day of the week. If you bring Kurama into the conversation from Alive Madara, Sasuke could probably override the Genjutsu Madara put on Kurama, so it wouldn't even matter. And I think Rinnegan Sasuke's perfect Susanoo is more powerful than Madara's perfect Susanoo. But how would they fare against each other at the peak of their powers? Well, that would mean Jubidara versus adult Sasuke. The one with the Rinnegan, by the way. The only problem is that there are many different versions of Jubidara as well. First, we have single Rinnegan Jubidara without the Divine Tree, the one that fought Guy. Then we have single Rinnegan Jubidara with the Divine Tree absorbed, the one who fought Naruto and Sasuke. Then we have dual Rinnegan Jubidara, who had a brief exchange with Team 7 and then used a massive multi-planetoid Chibaku Tensei. And finally, we have Rinne Sharingan Jubidara, the one who used Infinite Tsukiyomi and then died the most stupid, poorly written death in all of Naruto. Unfortunately for us, that was by far the strongest version of Madara, and we didn't get to see him doing anything at all, so we can only speculate about what he can do using his previous forms to inform our analysis. And by the way, if you like this type of versus battle video, like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. It also helps me a lot, so please do that. It really means a lot to me, thanks. So now let's take a look at what Sasuke could do as an adult. He was easily able to keep up with Kinshiki and fought Fuse Momoshiki and Ishiki with the help of Naruto. Okay, the problem is that it's very difficult to judge the strength of these Otsutsuki characters, mostly because they only fight Naruto and Sasuke and, well, Boruto. So you don't really have anyone else to compare them to. I guess Momoshiki fought the other four Kage briefly, and gave them a really good pounding, but Madara was having the 5 Kage for breakfast way before that, so it doesn't really matter, does it? Out of the Otsutsuki characters that appear in Boruto, Ishiki is the most powerful. He forced Naruto to use the Baryon mode and almost won the fight. He was also said to be Kaguya's superior when they both came to Earth to plant the Divine Tree, so it's safe to assume that he is, in fact, stronger than Kaguya. However, I don't know how much stronger than Kaguya he would be. I don't think Ishiki is at another tier of strength. That's because when Kaguya came back through Madara's body, she had the entire power of an entire Jubi at her disposal, while Ishiki was revived through the body of Jigen, a much weaker host than Jubidara. You could argue that the fight against Ishiki was much more difficult than the one against Kaguya, and I don't know if I agree with that. I would say that Naruto and Sasuke were close to dying against Ishiki, but that's because they had way less help than when they fought Kaguya. Ishiki fought Naruto and Sasuke with the help of Boruto and Kawaki, 2 Genins essentially, while in the fight against Kaguya they had help from God Mode Dual MS Kakashi, Obito, and Sakura. Much better help, if you ask me. Even though they were closer to dying in the fight against Ishiki, Naruto and Sasuke, and they got worse wounds after the fight, there were some very close calls against Kaguya, such as when Obito had to sacrifice himself to save Naruto and Sasuke from the disintegrating bone attack. Kaguya's ability to kill anyone she hits with those bones is way scarier and more powerful than Ishiki's ability to shrink and unshrink things. All of that is to say that even though I think Ishiki is more powerful than Kaguya, I think they are in a similar tier of power, and a fight between the two of them would by no means be a stomp. Also, if Kaguya had 2 brain cells and didn't fight like a dunce, she would be much more fearsome. Ishiki was by no means the sharpest tool in the shed, but at least he could think something tactical during his fights. Fused Momoshiki was definitely weaker than Ishiki. I think he was probably at Kaguya's level, if not a little below her. Naruto and Sasuke had practically no help in that fight, except for Boruto's bullshit Deus Ex Machina, Rasengan, whatever. Sasuke also got a really good pounding in that fight as well. Now, the question is, how much more powerful did Sasuke get since the end of Shippuden? Well, to be honest, I don't really see that much improvement in either him or Naruto, as a matter of fact. Sure, everyone says they are more powerful and have more chakra, but aside from Baryon mode, neither of them showed any significant new abilities or power-ups. I guess Sasuke can now teleport between dimensions, but I don't really think that's gonna be useful mid-battle. Now, what I might say now may seem crazy, but reading Boruto's manga, I kinda get the feeling that Sasuke got weaker in Boruto, and I know this is contradicted by statements when everybody says that Ishiki was the most powerful enemy they've ever faced, yada yada yada. There's also databook information saying Naruto and Sasuke are the most powerful ninjas, whatever. But if you compare what Sasuke with the chakra of the 9 Bijus accomplished in his fight against Naruto in the end of Shippuden to what Boruto Sasuke was doing, he simply looked much more powerful back then. I guess that has a lot to do with the drawing and the writing of the manga. Kishimoto had a knack to make characters' abilities and powers look incredibly and overwhelmingly powerful. Well, let's just say that in Boruto the characters are drawn and written in a less than impressive way. It also doesn't help that every single character in Boruto can absorb ninjutsu now, so the only thing Sasuke can do is taijutsu and Amenote Jikara, the teleportation Rinnegan ability. I think he used the Madara like 2 times in Boruto, and every time he used it, it didn't work at all. And I really like Amaterasu, it's such a cool jutsu, but now it's absolute dog shit. Also, Sasuke usually acts more as a support character in the fights against the Otsutsuki characters in Boruto, given that his Amaterasu doesn't work against them, and they can break through his Susanoo like a stick can break through Neji. Sasuke definitely over-relies on Amenotejikara and seems like he forgot he can use other abilities as well. He was pretty badly beaten against Ishiki and struggled a lot against Momoshiki, while he ended the fight against Kaguya pretty unscathed, having plenty of chakra to fight Naruto afterwards. So if you disregard statements and look only at the manga pages, Sasuke as an adult is not very impressive. I just get the feeling that Shippuden Sasuke would be able to do anything adult Sasuke ever did in his fights against the Otsutsukis, and that's not true at all for, say, EMS Sasuke compared to Rinnegan Sasuke. And maybe that's because of Boruto's incompetence? But oh well, let's take a look at Jubidara now. Jubidara's weakest form, the one who fought Guy, would probably lose to adult Sasuke mid-difficulty, to be honest. That Madara wasn't terribly used to his powers, but I don't think he was a slouch either. I mean, if you look at it, he wasn't taking the fight against 8th Gate Guy 100% seriously. He wasn't goofing around like he was against the 5 Kage, but he let Guy charge the Night Guy and kept urging Guy to keep fighting, wanting to see what he had in store. He didn't really react the best way possible against Guy's moves. A lot of people say that this Madara would be stumped by Sage of Six Paths Naruto because of that feat with the Magma Rasen Shuriken, but I think that feat is very overhyped. I mean, Guy had just blown up half of Madara's body. He wouldn't be in his best shape to evade the Rasen Shuriken or fight Naruto back. And by the way, that Magma Rasen Shuriken barely hurt Madara. Guy's kick dealt like 200 times more damage than the Rasen Shuriken. After Naruto's Rasen Shuriken, Madara only had a cut across his stomach, while Guy destroyed the left side of Madara's body. But still, adult Sasuke would be able to deal with the Limbo clone and the Gudodamas used by that version of Madara, especially because he can see Limbo clones, and Amenotejikara would be very good to deal with the Gudodamas, allowing him to escape his attacks very easily. Jubidara then absorbs the Divine Tree, and I don't really know how much more powerful he gets after that. It's difficult to tell, but he definitely grows in strength. He uses some new jutsus, mainly those lightning release techniques, but I don't think he gained access to those jutsus through the Divine Tree. Rather, I think that the tree just increased his physical strength and durability and speed and all that. We have a pretty good point of comparison with this form of Madara because he has a direct confrontation with Rinnegan Sasuke. Granted, Sasuke had just gained the Rinnegan and was learning how to use it. However, I get the feeling that both Naruto and Sasuke had an innate capability to use and understand their new abilities gifted by the Sage of Six Paths. You can just look at how Naruto just healed Guy and Kakashi's eye without even knowing what he was doing. The fight between Jubidara, Naruto, and Sasuke was pretty evenly matched. Some people say that Madara was losing that fight, but I disagree. The characters were mostly measuring each other out and being careful during that fight. Madara got hit by the Chidori Rasengan combo, but he easily substituted with a Limbo clone. He also hit Naruto pretty hard in that fight too. A lot of people bring up the fact that Sasuke cut Madara in half, and they say Sasuke blitzed Madara, and Madara does acknowledge Sasuke's speed. However, Madara wasn't really trying too hard to defend himself. He wanted to go to the Kamui dimension and get his second Rinnegan. That was his priority at the moment. You mean to tell me that Madara wouldn't be able to react to Sasuke while he was able to do so against 8th Gate Guy, who was literally bending space-time because of his extreme speed? He just didn't really care about Sasuke's attack because he knew it wouldn't kill him and he could just regenerate, and getting the second Rinnegan was what he wanted to do at the moment. Sasuke is not blitzing Jubidara. He might be faster than him, but he cannot absolutely outclass Jubidara in speed. Jubidara can definitely react to Sasuke. A good point of reference that Madara wasn't really struggling against Naruto and Sasuke was that he indeed took the battle seriously, but he wasn't scared of Naruto and Sasuke at all. He had no second thoughts about his chances of winning. even when he found out more about Naruto's and Sasuke's abilities. We also have to keep in mind that Sasuke had Naruto's help in that fight, which helps a lot, and I'm not sure if that Sasuke would be able to deal with Jubidara by himself. Still, if we assume that adult Sasuke got more powerful than end of Shippuden Sasuke, I think he can probably take this fight against Divine Tree Jubidara. He had only one Limbo clone that Sasuke would be able to see and counter pretty well, as we saw him doing, and Sasuke did a pretty good job reading Madara's movements and understanding his abilities during that fight. So an adult Sasuke who is supposedly more powerful and has more experience would probably win. However, Madara gets much more powerful with the second Rinnegan. We know that the Rinnegan pair increases power exponentially. It's not like just adding one Rinnegan on top of the other. When they are combined, the power increases much more than the sum of its parts. So much so that Obito could not handle two Rinnegans. It's safe to assume that dual Rinnegan Jubidara is far more powerful than his previous versions. He casually summoned dozens of Chibaka Tensei planetoids before casting the Infinite Tsukiyomi. Unfortunately, that's about all he did. We know he had 4 Limbo Shadows, but we don't know much more about his capabilities. And the same thing applies to Rinne Sharingan Madara, which we know nothing about. That version of Madara is the definitive version of him, but we just don't know what he can do. Could he use his Susanoo in that form? How would that look like? I imagine it would be extremely powerful. Just picture the power of the perfect Susanoo enhanced by 6th Path Sage Mode and the chakra of the Ten Tails on top of that. In Storm 4, the Naruto game, when Sasuke and Naruto fought Jubidara, he had a crazy perfect Susanoo that was like 10 times larger than Sasuke's perfect Susanoo. And it was just amazing. I mean, the fight, at least we had a fight in the game, and the fight was pretty cool. And well, that is not canon, but if Madara could do something like that, Sasuke would be in a world of trouble. But, well, I can't really pull things from a video game. It would just be cool to see that. But it's really the only thing I have going for Rinne Sharingan Madara that I can maybe try to extrapolate. And that's the problem I'm facing with this video. There are no feats I can pull from. I can only speculate. I have to imagine that Rinne Sharingan Madara would be extremely powerful with a vast arsenal of jutsus and extreme raw power. Would he be able to beat someone like Kaguya though? We know she is far more powerful than Jubidara considering raw strength. However, Naruto and Sasuke still beat her with some help, and those two, the same Naruto and Sasuke who fought Kaguya, were fighting single Rinnegan Jubidara just a little bit before and were pretty equally matched. Also, Jubidara is a trillion times smarter and more experienced at fighting than Kaguya, which bodes well for his chances. As a matter of fact, Madara is by a long margin the smartest Rikudo-like character. Kaguya is a dunce. Momoshiki only cared about blasting the most powerful jutsu he could absorb and really didn't think tactically since he over-relied on his absorption. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been defeated by a Genin. Ishiki was deceived by a transformation jutsu and then a shadow clone, and was technically defeated by a Genin, or even worse, a non-shinobi. He was also never really good at fighting with complex tactics. His fighting style was summarized in shrinking those rods and making them reappear, and then punching Naruto and Sasuke really hard. I think Madara would be able to do a lot of damage fighting all out with the Rinne Sharingan state, and using clever tactics and combos with his vast array of jutsus would be something very bad for any foe he would face. I also have difficulty accepting that Sasuke with only one Rinnegan could compete with someone who has the chakra of the Ten Tails sealed within him, 6th Path Sage Mode, and 3 Rinnegans. Madara would have much more chakra and possibly firepower. I mean, how would Sasuke kill him? Maybe if he had access to Indra's arrow? Sure, maybe his Chidori or something could cut him in half, but who knows if Madara's speed and defensive capabilities wouldn't dramatically increase with the Rinnegan Sharingan. My gut feeling is that adult Sasuke would probably beat dual Rinnegan Jubidara with very high difficulty and lose to Rinnegan Sharingan Jubidara. But honestly, I could be completely wrong about this. Maybe I'm overstating Jubidara's power a lot and downplaying adult Sasuke just because I don't like Boruto as a series, and the fights in the manga don't look nearly as impressive as in Naruto. But as I said before, I don't see adult Sasuke doing anything noteworthy in Boruto that he wouldn't be able to do in Shippuden. Maybe he would even lose to dual Rinnegan Madara because again, we don't know the full extent of his powers. To be honest, Sasuke really needed Naruto to beat guys like Momoshiki, Kaguya, and Ishiki, and in this fight, he would be alone. And you never know, both Sasuke and Madara have just so many hacks abilities that any scale we try to do would be rendered absolutely useless. Please, comment down below, what do you think about adult Sasuke versus Jubidara? It's hard to come to a definitive conclusion, and most of what everyone says about Rinnegan Sharingan Madara is headcanon anyway. If you want to watch a fight with a more clear-cut winner, click on the video showing on the screen. Like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the content, and, well, thanks for watching.